Welcome and well met, my fellow nerds. Thank you for joining me here today as we are going to be discussing how to unlock all 12 notes for the latest variant dungeon of Aloalo Island. So this particular variant dungeon was released with 6.5. It is part of the South Sea Isles, and we're going to be journeying to a tropical island with Matsuya. I'm not going to go into too many details about what the storyline is here. I don't want to spoil it for you. But if you have done the variant dungeons before, then you probably already know this. But just in case you haven't, the variant dungeon is a way for you to take multiple different routes across very special locations. We already had this with the Sildet Subterrane and Mount Ronken. And when you unlock all 12 notes, that's when you're able to receive a very special mount. In this case, it's in the form of a beautiful fairy. So if you are looking for a specific note but having trouble unlocking it, you can just go ahead and go down to the description and just jump straight to that. So let's go ahead and dive straight on into it with notes 1 through 4, which can only be unlocked by taking the first route, which is on the far left. So it's pretty straightforward. You just fight off the mobs until you reach the halfway point where you come across a treasure hunter, which will summon a kind of wooden puppet that has all sorts of weapons and elemental damage that it can do. I should mention that there are 3 treasure hunters that are kind of racing us to the end, and you do see one of these treasure hunters throughout each of the routes that you take. Meaning that you will come across the wooden puppets no matter which route that you do take. It's not too bad. The mechanics do vary just depending on which path that you start off with though. Anyway, moving on to after you defeat the first boss, you will be able to continue on until Matsuya decides that he wants to stop and fish. So this is important because this is where you have to follow the certain steps in order to unlock the right note. When Matsuya stops to fish, he presents you a dialogue option. For notes 1 and 2, you need to tell him that you need to press on. This will allow you to take the right path, which is blocked by driftwood. All you need to do is touch it and that will cause it to disintegrate. And then you move on until you come across a Lalafell that's being attacked by mobs. So you have an option either to help out the Lalafell or let him just kind of face this on his own. So for note 1, after you tell Matsuya that you need to press on, that now is not the time for fishing, when you get close enough to the mobs, they start to attack the Lalafell. So you get close enough for the enemies to attack him, but you don't interfere. You let the enemies attack him until he drops to 0 health and then he runs away. After you defeat the mobs, that's when you continue on to the final boss. Note 2 is nearly identical. You have to take the left path, tell Matsuya to press on when he wants to fish. But this time, when you come across the Lalafell being attacked by the mobs, make sure that you pull the enemies off him as quickly as you can to prevent him from being defeated. So you can protect him by either taking all the enemies onto yourself or by healing him until all the mobs are down and he still runs away. That's how you unlock for note 2. For notes 3 and 4, however, when Matsuya says that he wants to stop and fish, this time you let him fish to his heart's content. Doing so will pass a small cutscene where we see the sun going across the sky and it turns to sunset. By that point, Matsuya realizes that the tides have receded, and then you just follow him on the new path, which will take you to this small sand dune. And he's going to be asking if you want to fish again. This time, you choose his bait either by interacting with the sand or with the pile of rocks. For notes 3, you have to choose his bait by interacting with the sand. Give him whatever you find, and he'll continue to fish until he pulls up some more monsters to fight against. That's for note 3. For note 4, it's identical, but this time you choose the pile of rocks. You find whatever is lurking in there, give him the bait, and let him fish to his heart's content until he pulls up the monsters again. Afterwards, you just continue on to the final boss. So, notes 1 through 4 are pretty simple, pretty basic to understand, and we move on to notes 5 through 8, which can only be unlocked through taking the middle road. So for note 5, it's perhaps the most straightforward of all the routes. You take the middle path and you keep going straight forward until you defeat the first boss in the middle of the dungeon, and then continue on until you reach this area where you will see a pack of mobs including a Trent and 4 worms. Along them you'll see a large stone sigil on the ground. All you need to do is to remember to kill the Trent and the 4 worms away from the sigil. Once all these enemies are defeated, you just stay on the beaten path, don't interact with anything, don't take any secret routes until you reach the boss. For Note 6, it's pretty much the same as Note 5. You just continue on fighting off all the mobs, defeat the first boss, and make sure you kill the Trent and the 4 worms away from the sigil. The only difference here is that when you move onwards, you will eventually see large bushes with red flowers. So you can actually move through these bushes and you find a group of armadillos enjoying a snack. You move forward until they notice you and then you scare them off, and you just continue on afterwards. There should be 2 different routes that you have to take, so whenever you see these red flowers, just pass straight through them and just follow the roads downward until you come across the armadillos. With the 2 groups of the armadillos having fled, then you proceed to the final boss. Now, moving on to Notes 7 and 8. So it's the same as the first 2 notes, except this time when you come across the Trent and the 4 worms, you have to kill them on the sigil. Defeating the worms on the sigil will unlock a secret path. However, you do need to defeat the Trent first, or else it will absorb the magic used to create the desired path. So just grab all 5 of the pack and just pull them directly onto the sigil, but make sure the Trent dies first. It has to go down first. Once all 4 are down, the sigil will continue to glow until a brand new branch for you to follow appears. You press forward on this new path until you reach an area where you'll see 3 inactive wooden golems standing guard, as well as a pack of enemies. Behind one of these golems is the Makote treasure hunter. Just make sure that you don't attack them for Note 7. So when you reach this point, you ignore the Makote and just focus on the mobs. Do not damage her at all. Eventually, she accidentally causes the wooden golems to become active and hostile, which causes her to run away. Defeat the wooden golems and then continue on to the final boss. Note 8 is identical until this point, so you defeat the mobs, defeat the first boss. When you reach the Trent and the worms, the Trent dies first, and then the 4 worms die on the stone sigil. You just continue the pathway until you come across the wooden golems again. But this time, when you reach the stone golems, make sure that you attack her first. Once she's damaged, that's when she will run away, and the stone golems don't become active. So you know you did it right when the stone golems don't become hostile after you end up defeating the rest of the mobs. After the mob is down, just continue on to the final boss. Okay, and so that's going to be leaving us with the final 4 notes of 9 through 12, with 12 being the secret boss. And they're mostly pretty easy to understand with the exception of the 12th boss. And I will explain in more details once we reach that point. So moving on to 9 through 12, which can only be unlocked by taking the right path, which is on the far right. So starting off with Note 9, after you end up defeating the mobs, including the first boss, you will come across a dead end. As you're looking around for a place to go, a fairy is going to appear and offer to help you out. For Note 9, you have to accept the fairy's help. That's where she'll create a portal for you to go through, which will take you underground. It's a pretty straightforward path from there, just fight off the mobs until you end up coming across the final boss. Oh, also, before you face off against the first boss for this particular route, you will come across a section of tikis. One of the tikis has fallen over. You can choose to cause the tiki to go upright, or you can leave it down. These don't have any kind of outcome except for the mechanics of the first boss, so do whatever you want with those. Okay, so for Note 10, it's pretty similar. You just continue to fight the mobs, the first boss, and continue on until you reach the dead end with the fairy. But this time, when the fairy offers to help you out, you deny help. You do not accept her offer. She's going to try to convince you. Just keep saying no every time to deny her. She'll then leave in a huff, which will cause Matsuya to clear a new path for us to take. After defeating a mob of boars, you will continue on the road until you come across a bunch of treasure chests sitting in front of you. Now, surprise, surprise, these are mimics, so if you try to open them, they will emerge and start attacking you. So for Note 10, Once you reach this point, ignore the chests, just move past them, which will cause the fairy to appear and clear the block path afterwards. That will lead you to a room that has 3 totems. Ignore the totems and just go straight for the lever at the other side of the room. Follow the road to the final boss. For note 11, it's pretty much identical as note 10. The only difference is that after you deny the fairy and continue on the road and reach the many different treasure chests waiting for you, you go ahead and interact with one of them. This will cause the chest to burst out as mimics and attack you. Defeat the mimics and then just resume the following path until you open the door with the lever and just head straight downwards to defeat the final boss. Okay, so now we're going to be going on to the 12th and final note, which is also the location of the secret boss. So let's go ahead and we take the right path and we just follow it through just like the others, where we fight off the mobs, defeat the first boss until we reach the dead end and the fairy will appear. So like with some of the others, you just deny the fairy's help when offered. Just follow the path that Matsuya makes. Now at this point you can choose to interact with the treasure chests or not. It really doesn't affect the outcome if you're going for note 12. I advise just ignore the chests though, just to save a little bit of time. Eventually though, you will reach the room with the 3 totems, and you need to perform 3 separate rituals that were described in some of the previous notes. So the rituals may be done in any particular order. You can do it as one person, or you could have 3 separate people just doing all of them at once. Okay, so let's start off with the falcon statue. You have to stand on the small platform in front of it, and you have to say the words, "O dancer of the skies, hear me." And you have to say that in chat exactly as how I'm writing it here. This will grant a short buff window where you have to complete the required steps. You have to prove your sincerity to the deity by using the blow kiss emote. Then you run clockwise around the center, and once you return to the pad, you /dance to finalize the ritual and cause the statue to glow. For the whale statue, you say the words, "O messenger from beyond the horizon, hear me." This is going to give you another buff where you have to first run clockwise around the statue, and once you return to the starting pad, you run in the opposite direction. You run around the statues counterclockwise once, and once you return to the pad, you dance to finalize the ritual, just a regular /dance. And finally, for the turtle statue, you say in the chat, "O wayfarer of land and sea, hear me." With the buff active, you run counterclockwise around the statues twice. And when you return to the turtle's pad, you bow before it. This will cause all 3 statues to glow, and a new path will open up in the center of the room once all 3 rituals are complete. Following it down into a foggy area, you're going to see some enemies along the way, where you will see a Rogadin treasure hunter trying to escape. Defeat him in order to get the requirements for the final step. After you defeat him, he's going to run away, but he drops a bag, which will have 3 statues inside it. Follow along the route and you'll see 3 pedestals, so it's important that you place these in the exact order. The falcon statue should be placed on the first pedestal you come across. The whale should go in the middle one, and the turtle should be on the pedestal the farthest away from where you first entered. Once all statues are placed correctly, they will glow and allow you to continue forward to face the secret boss. And that should be all 12 notes. I do hope that you found this particular guide helpful. You can do this in any particular order, despite the fact that the 12th note does require information found in some of the other notes first. But once you have all 12, you will be able to obtain the achievement Good-Willed Hunting, which rewards the Spectral Staticen whistle to add to your mount collection. If you are having trouble on any one of these particular notes, like I said, you can just go down to the description where you can just skip right ahead to the particular note that you need. But otherwise, I guess that's it for right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. And good luck getting your mounts. So until next time, everybody, please take care, and please leave a like and subscribe down below for more videos like this one. Otherwise, may you walk in the light of the crystal.